Hi students! In this video, I want to give you some tips about how to succeed in our class discussion forum, especially given the unusual nature of the discussions in this course. The discussion forums are at the heart of an online course because they're the primary way that we have student-to-student interaction and student-to-instructor interaction. They're the closest we come to simulating a face-to-face classroom. And they're important because you need to attain an average grade of at least 74% in discussions to move forward in your BSN program. So first, let's talk about the unusual aspect of discussions in this class. Every discussion features your textbook author, Lee Cockrell, very briefly describing a dilemma or challenge he faced. Your mission is to discuss what you would do in that situation by Wednesday of the week in which the discussion appears. And as in any discussion, you will then respond to the posts of at least two classmates. Then on Thursday of each week, a video module called What Lee Did will open up in Canvas, and you'll have the opportunity to see how Lee actually handled that challenge or situation. You'll probably want to make some follow-up comments based on what Lee did. Were you surprised by how he handled the situation? Did you have positive or negative feelings about Lee's solution? The whole setup is described by the former instructor of this class in a video linked underneath this video. Now, you will note that on your class calendar and on the discussions themselves, the discussions are designated as being due on Sundays, the last day of each week. Now, what that means is that the entire discussion will be wrapped up on Sunday, but you still need to post your initial response on Wednesdays. Now let's talk about grading of discussions. I follow the discussion forum rubric when I grade discussions. You'll find it under this video. I suggest that you review it carefully now at the beginning of this November session and perhaps take a quick look at it every time you post a discussion response. There's a little pull down toggle to the right of each discussion board forum that enables you to pull down an item that says show rubric. So you can look at the rubric every time you're getting ready to post. The prompts for discussions in this class are fairly brief and very clear. Here's a sample from this class. You'll see that it has a couple of parts to it. It describes what was going on in Lee's video and asks you to discuss what you would do if you were in this predicament and maybe cite a similar situation that you might have been in and describe what you did to overcome the problem. Then, as we noted, you're going to check back later in the week to see how Lee described or handled the situation, and you'll probably want to make some additional comments when you after you've seen how Lee handled it. So if a prompt has multiple parts like this one does, one format you might want to consider for your response is kind of basing it on an outline. So you include all the points of the discussion so that you make sure that you hit on those points in your response, because that's the point of the first rubric, which is completeness, that all components of the discussion, question, or topic are addressed sufficiently. So this is a little bit like answering questions at the end of a chapter in a textbook. The way you get full points for completeness of your response is by hitting on every point. The second piece of the rubric is about critical thinking. And this is not, even though it says writing clearly, this is not about the nitty-gritty mechanics of writing. That's covered in another piece of the rubric. But this piece of the rubric asks you to make sure that your response makes sense, that you've put thought into it, that you've dug deeply enough, and that you've written something that's easy to read. So be sure to proofread your post. I don't hold discussions to as high a standard as I would, say, an academic paper, but on the other hand, I want them to feel conversational, but not to the point of, say, like you're texting or posting on Facebook or something like that. So I want them to be a little bit informal, but not as informal as, say, in social media. Now, the application point in the rubric is one that's very easy to miss, and I've seen a number of students miss it in the past. This rubric point asks you to integrate scholarly sources into your posts. Now, since we don't have exams in this class, I will find it perfectly acceptable for you to use your textbook as a scholarly source, even though it's technically not scholarly. That way I know that you're doing the assigned reading. And if you really want to impress me, you'll bring outside sources into your posts, including supplemental materials. Now, I'd love to see at least one outside source in your post, and at least one source should be scholarly, meaning it comes from an academic journal found in a library database. You can integrate either direct quotes or paraphrased material from other sources into your posts. The current trend in academia is away from direct quotes, actually. Paraphrasing is seen as superior because it shows that you've synthesized and interpreted the information. Also be aware that a key word in the rubric is integrated. You want to make sure that your whatever you're bringing in from an outside source is smoothly integrated into your posts. I do not want to see what I call disembodied quotes, where a quote just sits there and is not woven into the text. And if you have any questions about how to do that or how to avoid a disembodied quote, just reach out to me. And you're also going to be sure that you use APA citation style correctly, both in your reference list and your in-text citation. And that's also covered in one of the other points in the rubric. And be sure to look at the resources about APA style in the course welcome module. Now you can either skip that, sorry about that. The rubric for your replies to classmates is pretty straightforward. You need to reply to at least 2, and I'd like to see meaty replies that move the conversation forward. I want to see you engage with your classmates. Consider asking questions or politely challenging a classmate's perspective. I want to see a good level of thoughtfulness and reflection. Notice whether, as the week progresses, anyone is responding to your initial post. I've found that a lack of responses might be a tip-off that your post isn't meaty enough, or that you've just done the bare minimum and not really given your classmates anything to grab onto to respond to. So if you find no one else is responding, you might want to go back in and beef up your initial post. The next piece of the rubric is the one that does deal with the nitty-gritty writing issues. Be sure to proofread your posts and reach out to me if you're having any difficulty with your writing. Finally, we have the piece of the rubric that deals with your professionalism, reflection, thoughtfulness, respect, and courtesy. And frankly, it's very rare for me to deduct anything from this area, but these requirements are still worth remembering. So I'm really looking forward to lively discussions in this class about how Lee should and does handle his challenges. I think you'll really enjoy this format, and I'd love to get your feedback about it. So let's get going with our discussions.